Hi, I'm Vicky. I'm glad you're here. Today I have a project using wax paper and watercolour. So this is a wax paper that I have for baking in the kitchen. It's quite shiny on this side and it's matte on this side. The shiny side is what we're going to be using for this technique. In one of my recent videos, I showed you how to make these two watercolour cards using cling wrap. And wax paper is a little bit different in that the shapes are going to be less triangular. Can you see those angles in the background? They're beautiful, beautiful backgrounds. What I'm going to aim for with the baking paper are more rounded shapes in the background, but it will be a very similar effect. And I'm going to be using some negative painting. So I'll be painting the negative space. I'm going to be using a stamp set. I'm going to be using hugs on the front here to go on my heart card. This is one of my favourite stamp sets from My Favourite Things, and this is called Winter Wreath. And to stamp that, I'll be using VersaFine Onyx Black ink, but I'll be doing that after I make the wax paper background. I'll be stamping over the top of that, and then I'll be doing some negative painting into the background, and I'll show you that technique as well. It's really fun. So I'm using my usual Canson XL watercolour pad, which is my favourite one for making watercolour cards. I have a sheet here, it's 9 inches by 12 inches. And for this technique, I want to make a really large card. So I thought I'd make a nice square card. So if this is a 12 inch by 9 inch sheet, I'm going to actually cut down on this side. I'm going to put my paper to portrait orientation, and I'm going to cut it down to 6 inches by 12 inches. So I'm lining it up at the 6 inch mark on my trimmer and cutting that down, and that leaves me a nice panel that I can use on top of a note card or a 3x3 card. Now I'm going to score this at 6 inches. With my scoring blade, and I like to run it over a few times with watercolour paper. And then you're going to take the mountain fold, which is here, and fold it in half. And I'm going to use a bone folder. If you don't have a bone folder, you can use the handle of some scissors and crease that. Give it a really nice firm crease. And you can see how beautifully that scores. It looks like a really nice professional finish. I'm going to take my wax paper, tear a sheet somewhat bigger than my card. I'm going to use the backing piece from some designer series paper. You could use the back of one of your watercolour pads or any thick cardboard. You can see how thick that is, and that's going to help my card to remain nice and flat. I'm going to use masking tape, this ZQ tape or ZQ tape that I love. It's about $2.50 from my local dollar store, and I have many rolls of this. So to create the border, I'd like to have about a 1/4 inch border on this because it's quite a nice square shaped card, and I think that'll give it a really good frame. So about a 1/4 inch. And now for the painting. I'm going to choose 2 colours that will work really well together. Because I'm going to be creating a painting of hearts, I want there to be some pink in there. And I'm thinking also maybe some purples and blues. So if I use pink and blue, I should get a transition between pink and blue into purple. So we'll see how that goes. I'm going to be using my Daniel Smith paints. You could use any watercolor paints for this technique and it will work. And I'm also using a mop brush. So any large brush would work for this. If you have a large round brush, that would be good too. But I'm going to use a mop brush because this is great for getting really wet washes on the paper. And I'm going to spray onto the paper, and then I just like to just tap it with a paper towel so that there's no puddles on there. And I'll bring my single palette in, and I'm going to start off using quinacridone rose. And something like Rose Madder would work for this as well, or alizarin crimson would also work. It's a nice solid pinky red. It's not an orangey red. You don't want an orangey red with this. I don't think it will make as nice a purple, because we're going to be making a purple with this. And I've already tested it out, and I know this works really well with cerulean blue. So I'm going to start off with plenty of water and just start off on one side. This is a lovely bright blue. And I'm going to mix this in so there's a little bit of blue over this side, and then let them blend together. Let them join in the middle. Not too much over mixing, because I want to come back in and add more pink, because I want this to be reasonably heavily pigmented to start before we lay on the wax paper. And then coming back on the blue side and bringing that back into the center, so you can see how we've still retained a little bit of the blue over here, but we've really transitioned from pink to purple. And I want a little bit more pink in here. So those two colors work really nicely together. Now I'm going to bring in the wax paper, remembering I'm going to put the slick side down. I'm leaving the smooth side on the top, and I'm just going to tear it into pieces about this size. I'm going to put it straight down onto that wet paint. And you do this while it's dry. You've got to press it down so that you get good contact. And I really don't want my pieces to be really much bigger than that, because I don't want too many straight lines in it. With my watercolor piece that I used cling wrap, it had lovely rectangular sort of patterns in it. I'm going for something that might be a little bit more rounded this time, although you can never really tell with this technique because it's going to do what it's going to do. So I've got a line there, not too happy with that line, but I think I'll work around it. It's a straight piece. Now that looks like it's completely covered. And I'm going to take that into another room and set it aside to dry. It will take a little while, and you can't heat set it or speed it up, just let it dry naturally. And when it's dry, I'll come back and show you the reveal and then how we turn it into a beautiful heart card. Now I've left that for a couple of hours to dry, so let's take the paper off. So you can see the lovely soft colours that it's left behind and the shapes, and they're lovely and rounded, which is what I wanted. Made the fold on this side, but I think I'd like to turn it around and make it a top fold card this way, because I think the colours look really beautiful, transitioning from the pink to the mauve to the blue, coming down the card. So my fold is up here now, and you can decide which way you like it best on your own card. I'm going to do mine with a top fold. So the first thing I want to do is have a look at my little stamp and plan out what the front of this card is going to look like. And I want that pretty much right in the center of my card. And I'm not going to stamp it yet because I need to paint over some of this, so I'll stamp it last. So I'm going to mark out a shape for a heart right in the center, about here, here, and here. And I'm going to draw a heart right in the middle. So that's going to be our main focal point, which is nice. A little bit of red, a little bit of pink, a little bit of purple, and a little bit of blue in that main heart. And then I'm going to draw some other hearts around it, some smaller ones. I'm going to put one up here. I think I'll start with 3. 3 is always a nice number. And I might put a slightly bigger heart down here. And I'm just drawing them freehand. They don't need to be perfect. And what I'm going to do now is do some negative painting around those 3 hearts. Cerulean blue chromium. I have my quinacridone rose. In fact, I'll put them this way. And I've mixed the 2 together and I've made my purple. So just using those 2 colours, there's the purple shades, and they're quite wet. My Princeton Snap brush, which is a size 12, which has a nice point on it because I need to outline around the outside of these and be quite precise. And if I get into some tight corners, I can always bring in even a smaller brush than this, but this one has a beautiful fine point. And I'm going to start outlining the blue with a little bit more water. I don't want it to be too strong at this point because it will cover up all the background. There we go. I'm going to outline the sections that are blue around these 2 hearts. I'm taking my time and doing it quite carefully. A nice clean outline there. And then where it transitions to a different colour, I'll bring in the different colour. So I'm going to bring in some purples for up here. So the purple is in the middle here, just mix it all around. You can see the colours are separating a little bit. And I want it nice and wet. I don't want it too heavy at this point because I'm going to be doing lots of layers. So here's the purple. And it's transitioning up into the pink. So now we've got some pink transitioning up here. Push that away a little. And I'm going to let this fade out a little bit so there's no hard lines around here. Just wash it around a little bit. Same with the pink up here, washing it just so that it's nice and moist and it won't create any hard edges. And I'm going to just tidy up this part of the heart down here. This little heart at the bottom. And I've got a pink heart right up the top here, so I'm going to outline around that with the pink. Blend that out. So there's my first 3 hearts. Now I'm going to let that dry and I'll bring in my heat tool to help that process. And now I'm going to start drawing in some more hearts. So I'm going to draw another one underneath this one here. Just imagining that that's going to come up and around, but I'm not going to draw over the top of these. This one I'm going to draw up here. Imagine the heart going around here, then finish it off over here. And another one up the top. and maybe a half a heart over here just to fill in that space. And I'm going to do another layer. Now that this is dry, I'm going to paint another layer in exactly the same way that I just did there. I'm going to paint around this one. Now transitioning into the purple for the next layer down. And going around these hearts. And just blurring any hard edges between the colours so that you've got a smooth transition. Now coming down into the blue. And I'm going to dry this off again with my heat tool. I can just see a little harsh line up there. I'm just going to fix that. And now for another layer of hearts. But I'm not going over any of the other hearts that I've already drawn. I'm just leaving these be. Some large, some small. And now I'm going to do the same again. I'm going to work around the outlines on the outside. I'll start at the bottom this time and work up. Less water on the brush each time, so that each time you add a glaze, it is stronger than the last layer. So I'm not adding any water into my brush here. It's just a damp brush going straight into my dishes of colour. We're losing the afternoon light, and the overhead light was coming on and casting me in deep shadow. So I hope that's better lighting for you. And transitioning into purple. So I'll take most of the water off my brush so that it's mainly strong pigment here. And now into the pink. Taking the water off my brush, coming straight into the pink. And I'm going to bring some purple just into the bottom because it seems to me like there's a lot of blue, a lot of pink and not much purple. So that will help the composition. And I've lost this little heart here, so I need to make that darker. And just cleaning up anywhere where I think there needs to be just a little bit more definition. Or just tidying up the lines. This little one here could do with a bit more pink. And let's dry that off and see what we have. And just for fun, I'm going to bring in one more layer and I'm going to make it really dark blue, really dark purple, and really dark pink. So I'm going to draw some more hearts in. And really there's not much of a heart showing, and that's okay. Just imagining that there are hearts in here. So there's a line there. This one's kind of lost its definition up here. So I'll put something darker in there behind that. And I'll put something darker up here. Going this way. And I'll put another one here. Half a heart. And a heart here. Traveling down that way. And another one here. I'm going to make them a little bit thicker. Ah, now I can see. That light has really faded fast. And I'm going to try and fill as many spaces as I can with shapes that look like hearts. Now I can see the pencil lines quite clearly here, and I don't mind that look. If that bothers you, you might want to have lighter lines, but I think it actually looks really nice. So now I'm going to go in with really full mass stone, which is pretty much straight out of the tube, or in my case, straight out of the pan. I'm going to go in with the cerulean blue, full strength pretty much, and get our darkest darks. And I'm just taking this pigment straight from the pan. And there's a purple on that side, so I'll leave that one. There's a heart here coming in. So blue and pink, quite dark in the purples. And now for the pink straight out of the pan. And I'm just going to turn my paper because I'm going to put my sleeve in it otherwise. Now, as a final measure, I'm just going to go around and soften any hard lines that I can see, like here. And pick up some of that colour with a brush to just define those bits that have bled in together. And just pick that up with a tissue, mop that up. Well, we've had a few little runs, that's okay. It's watercolor, it'll do its thing. And up here I want to try and lift some of this pink if I can. There's a harsh line there. Pink tends to be a staining colour, so I might just be able to soften it is all. And this just helps tidy up any pieces that don't read like they belong in the painting. I don't know where that red spot came from. I think that was from our baking paper layer. So now it's completely dry. I've dried it off with the heat tool, and we can take off the tape, and then I'm going to stamp in the center. Now this would make a beautiful card just as it is, as a top fold card. So I'm going to get our stamp lined up, and I'm going to pop that onto my stamp positioner so I can ensure I get a good impression, and stamp that down. And I've just fixed up that little tiny piece that wasn't quite stamped correctly, just by adding an extra flourish. I'm very happy with how that turned out. So there is an example of negative painting and using baking paper to create this texture that is clearly visible on those first three hearts, these three here. That's given us a lovely top opening card that will open this way, and you could do more stamping on the inside if you wanted, or you could leave the stamping off altogether, or you could use a different sentiment on the front of it. Thanks so much for joining me today. I'm really happy with this project and how it turned out. I think it's a really lovely idea to learn negative painting. You could do this with leaves, you could do this with stones, you could do this with all kinds of other shapes as well. But hearts is something that I felt like doing on this card, and I think it's really worked out well. I hope you think so too. If you like my tutorials, I would love it if you give me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel so you don't miss any more videos. Have a fantastic day, and I'll see you again next time. Bye for now.